Hi, my name is Audrey Abick, and today I would like to talk a little bit about the history of special education in the United States and some of the different court cases that have influenced these changes over time. I'd like to start by apologizing for the quality of this video with Michigan's current stay home, stay safe policy. My resources are limited, so we are making do. So to get started, by 1918, all states had compulsory attendance laws. This meant that there were laws that required children to attend school, children that were in a certain age range. However, this often did not include students with disabilities. For example, in 1893, the courts ruled that a student could be expelled if they were weak in mind in the Watson versus City of Cambridge case. And then again in 1919, in the Beatty versus Board of Education, it was ruled that a student could be expelled because their disability created too much of a distraction and too much work for the teacher and negatively impacted progress. Even with the compulsory attendance laws, states continue to rule in favor of excluding students with disabilities from a public education. And this was happening as late as 1969. Parents advocating for their children and establishing advocacy groups were critical to push to form services for students with disabilities. One of these groups was the National Association for Retarded Citizens, which is now known as ARC USA. Their mission is to provide information, monitor the quality of services, and advocate for the rights of individuals. You can still visit their website at www.thearc.org. Moving forward, a pivotal case was Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954. While this case focused mainly on the inclusion of minority students, it resulted in changes in many areas of education and set a new standard for inclusion. In 1972, following the same concept of equal opportunity, two cases began the fight for students with disabilities. Pennsylvania Association for Retarded Children versus Pennsylvania specified that all children from ages 6 to 21 must be provided a free public education in a program like the ones for students without disabilities. Following that case was the Mills versus Board of Education case, also in 1972. It was determined that no student could be excluded from a free public education unless they were provided an appropriate alternative service. And there was a prior hearing along with updates on progress and services. These two cases really paved the way for 46 additional cases that took place in 28 different states in the next 2.5 years, all of which had similar rulings. Even with the varying laws throughout the different states, many students were still excluded from education. So, backing up for a minute, in 1965, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which promoted funding for educational opportunities for disadvantaged students, including those with disabilities. In 1970, this was replaced with the Education of the Handicapped Act, or EHA. This was important because it was the first freestanding special education law. It mandated students with disabilities receive an education and also required that they receive services and an education that they needed to progress. In 1973, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 required agencies that receive federal funding to make modifications and accommodations to provide services similar to those that students without disabilities were receiving. Then in 1990, the EAHCA was renamed IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. IDEA ensures all students have access to a free and appropriate public education, which is also known as FAPE. In 1997, an amendment shifted the focus to improving the education of individuals with disabilities by requiring demonstrable improvements. In 2004, President Bush signed the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, or IDEIA 2004. Some of the significant changes of that act included changes in the IEP, changes in discipline, and identification of students with disabilities. So as you can see, special education has evolved significantly from before the 1970s, even into the early 2000s. So to finish up here, I want to leave you with a few resources. Earlier, I mentioned www.thearc.org. If you live in Michigan like me, you can visit the Michigan Department of Education site. And on the left side of the screen, there's a special education tab. There you can print. It's just a 2-page IDEA fact sheet And on this fact sheet, there are also additional resources that you can visit for more information regarding IDEA, and also on the Michigan Department of Education website. Another great resource for parents is the procedural safeguards. There's a link at the top for that. This is a great resource for parents regarding the rights of their children with disabilities. So I encourage you to look at those resources and more that that site has to offer. Thank you.